Good morning, good morning. It's Monica from Life is Art, and this is the Saturday 10 a.m. technique from the Weekend in Whistler online crop. And we have been having a lot of fun exploring Whistler and getting a good look at the current catalog, which is the November-December catalog. We have been looking also at the featured collection for the month of December, which is the Evergreen collection. And so today we are going to be creating a card and doing some stamping techniques using the Evergreen Cardmaking stamp set that's here on page 20. And we're actually going to be recreating this card from the catalog. I love both of these cards, and I will probably be showing this one some other time during the month. But this one here, I really like, and it's kind of the reason why I bought this stamp set. I don't have a stamp set that has these sorts of evergreen trees and boughs quite like this, and so I was really interested in this one because it's a nice sort of organic, natural looking stamp set. And so let's get started. I'm just waiting for my notification that the video has started so that I can post it on the crop, and it seems to not be coming through because, you know, that's kind of how it goes. So let me just see if I can get a hold of it, because I need to post it before I get started. So and I have sometimes gotten the link from email, and sometimes I can find it on my page on YouTube. But one of these days I will get the hang of this. Let me see. No, it's still not coming up. So we're going to be creating this card, and it involves a little bit of the pattern paper from the Evergreen collection, but also the it's very cardstock based, and we're going to be using the sorry, I'm trying to talk and trying to find the video so I can post the link for all the people who are on the crop waiting waiting to watch. So we're going to start with our card base, and this card base comes pre-scored, ready to go. And one side will have the dip, and one side will have the bump. And I am doing my best to find this video, but it is not coming up. Oh my goodness. I had this same trouble last night. I'm going to have to do some research on how to on how to find the things when they're happening, because it seems to be a mystery to me. So we're going to be creating this starting with our card base. So let's give that a fold while we wait, and hopefully I'll get a notification so that I can post the link to y'all, and so that you can see what we're making. We're going to be making this card on the horizontal, and oh my gosh, I am so bad at talking and trying to play with the computer. We're going to be creating it on the horizontal, and we're going to be starting out with just the white card base. To that, we are going to add 2 pieces of this pattern paper from the Evergreen collection. Maybe we'll turn it around like this. And this could be a full piece of paper going all the way across the card. However, I decided to conserve some paper and use up some scrappy bits that I had. So this is a 2-inch high strip. You could just cut one to go all the way across, but I just cut some 1-inch by 2-inch pieces. I cut the 2-inch by 2 inch first, and then just chopped it in half so that the patterns match. And so that these little polka dots kind of go from side to side with the same pattern and same colors. Gonna add some adhesive to the back of these. And then what we're gonna do is we're gonna use our Versamat, the lines on our Versamat, to help us line these up 1 inch from the bottom of the card. So let's get that going. I also, the reason I also have to wait for the video, besides posting it to the event page, is that I can't tell how we are in the frame. But if you're joining me live, just say hello or howdy so I know you're here once I get my video going. And if you're watching later on replay, you can say replay. We love our technology, don't we? It kind of, you know, it's handy when it works, and when we don't know what we're doing, it's a little bit frustrating, right? So let's give this another chance for me to find the video and see if we can possibly get it posted for everybody who's waiting. Ah, there we go. I have it now. Hooray! But now I have to share it, copy the link, go into the event. Let's get this posted. Everybody who's been waiting 8 or 9 minutes for me to get started, there we go. Getting that posted, and then we're going to bring in a piece of sage cardstock. And let me just pin that, get back to the video, and let's see if we can catch up with the live so that there we go. Okay. Phew. And I can already see that my camera is not in the place where I think it is. So let me just adjust it a little bit. Because all these things that are waiting for me to use don't need to be in the screen. But getting as close as we can to our project is helpful, because then you can see a little closer what we're doing. I'm going to bring in a piece of sage cardstock, as I said. And this piece has been cut to 5 inches by 3 3/4. And I'm going to do a fun little technique with this sanding block. And this sanding block is just, you know, a dollar store sanding block. I think there were 2 in the pack. My mom gave me this one. And, but you can use sandpaper, you can use an emery board. And all we're going to do is I'm actually going to use the edge of my Versamat to help me with this. I'm going to put my cardstock right on the edge of my Versamat, and I'm just going to sand on the edge of that cardstock. I'm going to try and not do what I did last night when I was working away, and I'm going to try and not sand my table, because I kind of did that last night. So, you know, I'm thinking that maybe having, you know, a wooden chopping board, a nice thick wooden chopping board in my craft room would be not a bad idea for doing sanding. I should tell my husband, because he has a wood shop and he can totally make me something. So we're just going to lightly sand all the edges. And what this does is it kind of creates a frosty look. It distresses the edges, and but it's not overly distressed. And then all you need to do is take a tissue, because you're going to have little bits of the cardstock floating around, little cardstock dust, and just kind of gather that up, or use your stamp chamois to gather it up, but you don't want to use your chamois on your paper. So you can see now that it's created a nice soft white edge all the way around the cardstock, because sanding on the edge reveals that white core to the paper. So I'm using the true color side of the sage, and I'm going to scooch my card base out of the way while we work on this. And I think I'm also going to flip my Versamat over so we have the nice squishy side that's perfect for stamping. I'm also going to grab my all-purpose mat. Will I grab my, yes, I'll grab my all-purpose mat. We'll get it down there anyway. You can see that I was doing some some crafting last night and I did not clean it off. So we've got our white gloss spray splattered all over there. So we're just going to do our trick where we take our ruler and just scooch that right off. See how lovely that cleans up when you've had the gloss spray on there? All right, so we're going to do some stamping on here. We're also going to do some splattering. And one of the techniques that I really like to show quite frequently is to do generational stamping. Hands up if you've done generational stamping before, if you know what that means. I'm sure many of you have, and maybe some of you know what it is, but you didn't know that that's what it was called. So what we're going to do is we're going to bring in the large stamp from the stamp set that has the 5 trees all together in a cluster. So here's our stamp set. We've got 4 different sentiments on here: season's greetings, good tidings and great cheer, peace and joy, warm winter wishes. Then we have a group of 5 trees, a single tree, a couple boughs or branches, and then a nice little pine cone, and also a little cluster of 3 little berries there. And so lots of choices on this stamp set. So we're going to take our set of 5 trees to begin with. We're going to just season it, make sure it's ready to go. It's a fairly new stamp, only used it just last night. So, you know, it's new. You got to season it. And we're going to use the pine ink for this project. And we're going to create some different colors with the pine. And the way to do that is generational stamping. So if I ink up my stamp set, on my stamp, on my block, in the pine, like this, and then I come over and I stamp it on my card, and I'm going to come right down to the bottom here on the left side, and I'm just going to stamp that on there, just like this. Stampy, stampy, stampy. That is first generation stamping. Okay, so we stamped it once. Then if I ink this up again, and I'm going to do it this way just because I can. If I ink it up again and I stamp on this cut off piece of paper, this is a 3x3 piece of paper, I'm going to stamp on here again. This is first generation stamping as well. Okay, because we just inked it. Now if I come over to my project and I stamp it on my project without re-inking, this is second generation stamping. Okay, and then if I stamp it again right here, that is third generation stamping. And if I lift this up, can you see the variety of stamped images that we're getting? This is our first generation, second generation, third generation, and it kind of gives you that idea of perspective, of things in fog, of things in the distance, and you know, in a forest, yes, you see the close-up trees more clearly, but as they get farther away, they get sort of blurry and lost in the atmosphere, right? So that first, second, and third generation stamping works well for that. Let me show you on this scrap piece of paper. First, second, and third. And that creates quite a neat way to use the same ink color multiple times to get different intensities of the ink. And it creates a really fun look and really expands the use of your stamps. Good morning, Dawn. Nice to see you're watching. So now that we have stamped our panel here with our pine ink, I want to add some snow. And the way that we're going to add some snow, like we did the other day, is we're going to use our white acrylic gloss spray. We're going to give it a good shaky. And this is why there was splatter on my all-purpose mat when we started. There we go. Give it a good shake. And I'm not going to spray it. I did try to do a little bit of spraying last night, but it wasn't quite the effect I wanted. So we're just going to do tap, tap, tap. And we're going to put some snow up in the sky here. You can even touch right onto the card panel. I would keep wanting to say card front, but it's not the card front. It's the card panel. And just get some good snowy happiness happening there. There we go. Lovely. Okay, now this we can set aside to just rest and dry up a little bit. So I'm going to set that there. I'm going to move my mat out of the way. And I'm going to wipe up a few of the splatters. I think one of them even ended up on my phone. That's always the risk when you're doing splattering, yes. And then let's flip this back over. Let that dry for a moment. We'll wait for the video to catch up so I know where we are in the frame. But this piece that I cut on the sage cardstock, we are going to fussy cut this out. And there are actually thin cuts that you can get for this stamp set. However, you know me, you know I'm just going to fussy cut it, right? And actually, I don't really need to fussy cut the bottom. I could just cut it straight across. But, you know, it is what it is. So there we go. We've got our bottom done. And with the pivoting paper, this pivoting action is going to be essential when you're fussy cutting something like this, because you're going to be going in and out all those branches. And if you haven't kind of delved into the pivoting action, it's going to be a little bit more tedious. But again, as I say, there are thin cuts for this stamp set, as long as they're still available. Usually, it's the thin cuts that run out. For all you eager beavers who love the thin cuts, the stamp sets are always, they're made in-house, so they just make more stamps when they need to. It's just the thin cuts that they have a limited supply of for each stamp set. All right, and we're just going to work our way around, leaving our halo of that sage cardstock. I've got a little bit of excess paper there. And it's much easier if you just get rid of it than to try and deal with it. There we go. Okay, so we've cut around our little trees that we stamped first generation. And we're going to go ahead and add those onto our card. And I think it's kind of fun to have this layer. I could have stamped it directly onto the card, but I think it's fun to have this layer, even though I'm not popping it with foam tape, just because it's got that different edge and it gives it some separation from the back of the background stamping. So just kind of determining where I want to put it. I think right about there looks good. Now there's a little bit hanging over. Actually, I didn't put that very straight, did I? Let's see if we can fix that. Let's see if we can just get those tree trunks growing a little straighter. That's better. And then we're going to flip this over and just trim off the part that's overhanging, like that. And if we want to, we can even bring in our sanding block and just sand right on the edge there so that it all matches. Looking good. Now, to build up a little bit more layers, we have a couple pieces of white daisy cardstock, because if you remember from the example that I showed you, there's some snow piled up here. So this one is a 5" by 1.5 inch, and I'm going to tear the part that I'm getting rid of towards myself. So it's going to make a nice jaggedy edge with extra tearing sort of look on it. And I'm not going to tear it all evenly. I want to kind of create sort of a natural hill-like texture to my snowbank. So there we go. So that started out as a 5" by 1.5. We're going to just add some adhesive. Again, we're not popping this up with foam tape. We're keeping it all flat. But just because it's different textures, it kind of gets that dimension going. I've got a little piece there. There we go. And then we're going to stick this down to the bottom of the card, lining it right up on there. Now this is not the card. This is the panel for the card. And then we have one more piece, and this piece of white daisy is 3 inches by 1 inch, and we're going to do some tearing on this as well. We're going to, again, the part we're going to throw away, we're going to tear towards ourselves. Just like this. And create a nice little snowy escape. And I'm going to actually modify that just a smidgen like that. And what we want to do to give some distinction between this piece and the rest, we're going to add some ink to it. We're going to add some Mink ink. Sounds like a Dr. Seuss rhyme. Some Mink ink, and I've got one of our round sponges, and you can see I have used it for another color. But I quite often use even the cut side. I just kind of take it and roll it around in my hand so I have a nice little spongy bit showing. Dip that in the ink. This is what you do when you don't, scrub off your sponges or have enough sponges for all of your colors. And just ink along that torn edge and a little bit down onto the front of that piece. And that little bit of Mink will help create some dimension and create a little bit of lift. Now, when I put my adhesive on here, I'm not going to go all the way to this edge, and you're going to see why in a minute. I'm not going to stick that on just yet. It's going to sit there, but I need to do some stamping. I need to add my sentiment, and we're going to add good tidings of great cheer to the front of this. I'm going to use my intense black ink. And of course, this is always that moment where you hope that things don't go awry since you've done all this work already. And let me just bring this in for measuring purposes. I want to line that up right there. Good tidings of great cheer. Lovely. And we're going to use one of the tri-blend markers. This is the gold brown, and we're going to use the mid color of the gold brown just to color in. Let me lift this up so you can see it a little closer. Just to color in the sentiment down here that's sort of an outline as opposed to a solid. And we're just going to add some color there. So just gently, because these are very narrow letters, so you don't want to push hard on your marker. You're just kind of just glancing the tip of your marker through the lines. Try to color in the lines. I'm not very good at that. I always go outside the box. All the way around. And it's going to add just another color to our card. Really, all we've got on here is green and white so far. So this adds sort of a nice organic-y, light yellowy brown color in there. There we go. And then we're going to bring in our card base. And we're going to add some foam tape to the back of our card. And this is the regular 3D foam tape. Let's get some snippets of this going. And this is the only real added dimension that we're adding to our whole card. So we're just going to use the regular foam tape. If I was doing multiple layers, I would try to use that thin foam tape because it'll create the dimension without adding too much bulk. There we go. And we're going to stick this on, and then we have a little bit more stamping to do. Again, we still have that little extra bit of snow, but we gotta do a bit of work still before we get it all finished. Just taking off the backing. Sometimes it's hard to grab the backings. There we go. Oops. Halfway. Halfway. What are you guys thinking about this stamp set so far? Isn't it super fun? Let's center this on our card front. Just like that. And then we're going to stamp a couple more trees. And this time we're going to stamp the single trees. So we're going to make sure that we've got our stamp seasoned. We're going to grab our pine ink. And for these, I'm going to actually stamp it sideways so that the block is comfortable in my hand. Stamp one. And we're going to do these both in first generation stamping. Stamp two. Could even wash off our stamp when we're done stamping. We could do that. And our block, because I got some ink on the block. And then we're going to bring in our scissors and we're going to do some more fussy cutting. But again, you could get the thin cuts for this set. Just doing a little rough chop here first. And then we're going to go around our tree. Just in and out. Pivot, pivot, leave a halo. That little tag is getting stuck on my hand. So when I get up to the top, I'm just going to snip off to the edge, go around, and all the way down the other side. I find sometimes things like this, it's actually quicker for me to fussy cut than it is for me to get out my washi tape and line up a thin cut. Get my machine and run it through my machine. If I was making oodles of these cards, then yeah, okay. I might use a thin cut, but I'm still not sure because one thing that I like to do is watch movies while I do fussy cutting and stamping. So, you know, you can enjoy your time while you're taking the time to do some crafty stuff, right? Or we get online and we do our crafting and chatting with friends. That's super fun too. There we go. So we've got two first generation stamped trees. We're going to add some adhesive to these. And actually the last one, yeah, I think maybe I will add a little bit of some foam tape to that one. Maybe, maybe not. We'll see. We'll see. Whoops, I've dropped it. So what I want to do is I want to use my little hill here as a spacer to kind of get an eye as to where I want to put my tree. So I'm going to stick it right there. Then I can go ahead and put my hill, my little snow hill. Now, this is an interesting little tidbit from the example in the catalog, is they didn't line this corner up with the corner. They moved it over so that it was halfway between the piece of the panel and the edge of the card. So you see how it hangs over a little bit? I think that's kind of a fun little idea that they did there. And I was thinking about foam tape, but I think I'm just going to tape this down flat. And we're going to stick this on here pretty close to the bottom. There we go. So look at all those fun layers. We've got third generation, second generation, first generation, another first generation, and two more trees. So if you put all those layers together, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 layers of perspective just from stamping with that one stamp set. Now let's add a little bit of bling. So we're going to use our Silver Bells dots from the Silver Bells collection, which was last month's collection. And grab our piercing tool to help us with this. We're going to use one of these medium toffee dots just to put here beside our sentiment. And then we're going to use some of these white Silver Bells dots just to kind of bolster up what's happening up in the sky here with all of these snowflakes. Now, on the original image, there were a lot of these stuck on the card. And I don't know about you, but I try to I try to be conservative with my embellishments sometimes because, they're not made on trees. And so I like to kind of think about how many I'm using. So I'm not going to put as many as they did in the catalog. They had quite a few, but I think that gives a nice little effect. Those white ones especially are sort of iridescent, a little bit sparkly, and really pretty on there, along with those white acrylic gloss spray. So we have our card base that we started out, just our plain white pre-scored card base. We added on our pattern paper from the Evergreen collection, a panel of sage cardstock that we first, second, and third generation stamped, added some white acrylic gloss spray, stamping up again on a second piece of sage, fussy cutting and adding. We tore some white daisy cardstock. We did some Mink inking on this front one to give it a little bit of depth, and then stamping, doing a little bit of marker coloring with our tri-blends, and then adding on our Silver Bells bling to make a really fun card front. And I hope you enjoyed seeing that card come together from the catalog. And if you create a card like this, I would love to see it. Be sure to take a photo and post it in the comments when I post the pictures of this card. And we will see you soon. We start our chat and craft at 11:30. All right, toodaloo. Bye.